Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin podcast. Welcome to episode 99 of the Iron Sysadmin podcast, folks. We're almost at episode 100. We should plan a party.
99 problems and
99 episodes of Podcast on the Wall. 99. Never mind. Anyway, I'm your host Nate, and I'm joined tonight by Uncle Marc and Charles. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Woo! Good to be back.
Joke never gets old. Except it's usually Jason that uses it. He didn't join us tonight. Maybe he'll show up in the middle of the show and just
someone had to carry Jason's water.
Just skate in and
It's the old four host
mess
problem.
Up your video formatting by jumping in the middle and make Zencaster melt the heck down.
Yeah, right. I wonder what would happen if someone joined while we're recording. Would it just we're gonna stop and
Oh well, it would stop the friggin' recording.
Yeah, of course it would.
You'd lose the individual streams. We know that.
Yeah, that's what happened when his power dropped last time.
So let's not push it.
Yeah, you weren't here, Charles, but yeah, his power blipped in the middle of our last episode. Jason's did, and Zencastr just like had a fit. Stopped recording.
Wait. It's like... you're telling me that network engineer Jason doesn't have his desktop and internet on a UPS?
Well, no, he didn't drop.
Okay.
It was like his. I guess the laptop wouldn't have been on the UPS. Maybe it was. I don't know. But his camera, his monitors, all that stuff must not have been on the UPS because they all dropped. But he stayed connected. It's just that the audio input that he was on dropped, right? And Zencastr recovered, but it stopped recording.
That's an interesting question. I'll bet you my camera is not on the UPS.
Mine's just powered via USB, so mine is.
Well, I think mine is. So, but I think the problem is the USB might be coming off the monitor.
Valid. And if the yep. That's probably what happened to him then.
I'm not going to pull the mains to test.
Yeah, hold on. I got to try something. Am I still here? All right. So anyway, I think there's a monster trying to get in my door. Anyway.
Well,
so
you're the people in your house have no concept of boundaries. I mean,
you're right.
You have to have at least one offspring burst in every podcast.
Oh, it'll happen. I guarantee it'll happen. They're out. They're off.
It makes them more relatable.
Yeah, they're off. They're off getting ice cream right now. So when they come back, there will be probably a 6-year-old covered in ice cream that comes in,
no doubt.
looking for her tablet. All right. So anyway, episode 99. I can't believe that. All right, so tonight the plan is
You're
Charles.
having a little epiphany about that, aren't you?
Yeah, I know. Well,
wow,
it's
we're going to turn this into a significant number.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not. I guess it's not that much more significant. 99.
Well, actually, it aligns
but...
pretty well with our topic since we're talking sort of about reliability.
Indeed. Wait, does that really
line
up?
2 9s, man.
2 9s. 2 9s reliability.
2 9s doesn't seem like a good reliability.
Well, I mean, it's better than 1 9.
True.
All right,
and
so
do you count the 9s in front of and behind the period, or it's just the 9s past the?
Oh, so it's just 0.99? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I don't know. Like when you say 5 9s, is that 99.999?
Well, yeah, that's what that is.
I think that's the implication. Yeah.
It's supposed to be
pretty interesting.
It's a percentage.
5 9s, but the number in front of it to the left is like 80.
Yeah, 80.9999999.
Yeah, but you still got 5 9s.
I've got 5. There's a user-friendly comic about this.
Are we going, like, are people just going to lose us at this point?
It could be. It could be. No, the joke was that the guy in their marketing department had gotten it wrong, and instead of saying 5 9s, he was saying 9 5s. We have 9 5s of reliability.
I've worked for that company.
Which is like 55.55555%.
That product's cheap as hell. You know it is.
9 5s. Anyway, the topic for tonight, and this is Charles' concept, so if it's terrible, blame him, is about automated mitigation. So, Charles, you want to take it from there, and we'll just have a nice little discussion surrounding, well, exactly that.
Yeah. So, automated mitigation. What we mean by that is just the idea of trying to build some amount of self-healing into the system that you're maintaining. Like, it's a good start just to have monitoring, something that maybe pages you, texts you, sends you an email, whatever, if it's down. But if you could take that a step further, and in addition to telling you that there was a problem, the system you devised might actually attempt to fix it, maybe even attempt to fix it before it tells you that there was a problem. Like, maybe you don't need to know if it's able to heal itself. So, we've been thinking about this where I work, because we've been going through AWS's well-architected framework, which is a pretty good document, even if you're not running workloads in AWS. There's just a lot of good ideas that get discussed there. Some are generally applicable, some maybe less so, but there are good principles you can draw out of there, even if you're hosting your own stuff or you're working for a different provider. And one of the things they called out in section section on reliability is this idea of automated healing. For example, maybe having the ability to restart a service or even just to take some kind of custom remediation action. So like, let me give you a concrete example of like a really bare bones way of doing this. This is a real example involving two of the people on this show.
But
We had
What?
oh
not my
yeah, sorry
fault.
man, you're getting put on blast a little bit. It's okay. So we had this we had a problem with some on-prem servers that they now are running. This is some years ago, where we were using Gluster to host uploads that were shared between multiple web servers, and Gluster is an in-memory file system like NFS, kind of like NFS, and we'd noticed that over time there was some kind of memory leak. We never tracked it down, couldn't find it, and we tried everything. We spent days and days over a couple of years just we try this fix, we try that fix. We could never track it down, but we could watch and monitoring. We could watch as the memory just would gradually go down to basically nothing, and then eventually system would start running out of memory, killing processes. Pretty soon you have a dead web server. That's not fun. And it was
What's wrong with
highly
that?
available. Well, sure, because it was highly available. So as long as the web server stayed dead, we could run on like good node until we got in there to fix it. But so then the first action we took, which was this is terrible, but but everyone has done this. We just set up a cron job to in the middle of the night, stop Apache, unmount all the Gluster mounts, remount them, and start Apache. And it was staggered, so it was like the middle of the night on one node, 12:30 on the other. This is terrible. Nate was outraged when we did this as what we intended to be a stopgap measure. That was like 3 years
It's
ago,
it's
four
still in
years
use,
ago.
isn't it?
Oh God, yes. And you know what? It's been rock solid. So you can look at the memory graph on the system, and it's just
Yep.
peaks and valleys, but
Yep.
it worked.
I would be
Then
willing to bet that there's a fix for that memory leak by now.
yeah, but we're not even on that scene now. It's like I don't need to fix it at this point. The systems are pretty close to being decommissioned. But then we were able to improve on that in a different way. Because something we had noticed, because again, this is a networked file system, so it is possible for something to occasionally interrupt that mount, and the mount point becomes unavailable
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. And so we noticed that, and so this was different from the memory problem. And if it happened, say, pretty close to when we did the mount cycling, then that wasn't a huge deal. But if it happened, say, after that, there could be problems. And we occasionally did see some weird behavior because it lost its mount and the mount wouldn't just come back up. So, we put some monitoring in place to tell us if the mount went away. And, it was just like a shell script that was just potentially detecting, hey, do you see, and we put like a zero length file in the root of the file system, and just like, hey, can you get to the file? And it ran every 5 minutes. Then we said, okay, we did that, but instead of just pinging us, that's like, hey, crap, can't see it anymore. It's running with elevator permissions. How about you try to remount it like once or twice before telling us it's broken?
Not a bad solution. I
Not
mean,
a bad,
it's
not a, it's
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 not
crude.
it's not as elegant as it could be, right? I mean, you could
Nope.
call it crude. I'll call it not as elegant as it could be.
So were these you're using Gluster? Were you using the Gluster native fuse mounting, or were you exporting those as NFS?
No, it was
Uh,
Fuse, Gluster
yeah.
native Fuse.
I
Mhm.
thought now maybe this is in the ideal world, and the real world doesn't work this way. But I thought one of the big things about Gluster was that the client knows where all the Gluster nodes are, so if it loses one, it can still communicate to the others.
Yeah, ideally, that's exactly what's supposed to happen.
And it wasn't doing that.
I don't know if I was still there with you, Charles, when this particular one happened, because
You weren't.
I don't remember the specifics. But that's probably what should have happened. It should have failed over to the other one, unless something cut off both of them, which
Yeah, and it
really
was never
shouldn't
quite
happen.
clear to us what the root cause was. But again, this worked. Um, and we'd go back and check from time to time, and we could see that there was the occasional failure, and that the script had actually been able to remount the mount, and then it just did not alert us, because it's like, I don't need to know if it failed.
Right. I mean, unless it can't be recovered.
Sure. And there was a threshold set. It's like, all right, I think it was like 15 minutes, so 3 attempts. If you can't do it within 15, there is obviously some actual problem, as opposed to some momentary blip, and we're gonna have to go fix it.
Right. Right.
Which hasn't happened.
So basically, what you're describing here is just automated tasks, right? Tasks that run in cron, or tasks that are kicked off by some other thing that runs in cron, or
Yes.
whatever, right? That are just very local, and they don't necessarily alert, right? So the concept here is, instead of waking up an admin at 2 in the morning, it can just solve the problem on its own.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the specific use case, because it had woken me up at like 3 in the morning once.
Right. And so not only does your admin, or your web developer in your case, not have to get up at 3 in the morning to fix the problem, it's resolved theoretically much faster, right?
It's definitely going to be resolved faster, and it's like, there's an argument to be made here that there could be some underlying problem that's getting masked because there's a certain category of alerts that I've just chosen to suppress.
Right.
And that is something you have to take into consideration.
Right. So the reason I tried to elaborate on that slightly is because in my head I'm picturing sort of a tiered approach to this, right? So that's sort of the lowest level, right? I guess the lowest level is you get paged and a human wakes up and solves the problem, right? The next level would be what you just described. Instead of paging a human, the problem tries to solve itself. And if it can't solve itself, then it pages a human, right? And so you're right, though. In that circumstance, if it's the thing solves itself, but it's happening every 10 minutes, and it's just solving itself every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
There may be a bigger problem that you're missing because it's solving itself and you're never told, right?
Yeah, and naturally, I'm assuming the assumption would be that if that's the case, then you are going to see other issues.
Theoretically, yeah. Depending on what the problem, like in the thing you've described, yeah, I think you would see degraded web services.
Yeah, people wouldn't be able to upload files.
Right.
Like, you would actually get some user-facing breakage.
And every 5 minutes, they'd be like, "Oh, it works again," and then it breaks again, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm imagining then is the next thing that you'd want to make sure is happening there is there's some sort of logging or reporting happening, right? So when this happens, it doesn't just silently fix it. It logs something, or it sends a non-paging alert to your monitoring system.
So, but are we really seeing things that are fixing? Like, does the remount only happen if it detects there's a problem?
The remount happens, in this case, in this example, the remount happens if it determines that the mount point has gone missing.
Okay, because the first thing where you're restarting Apache every night,
Mm-hmm.
that's not even. I wouldn't even classify that as it's automatically fixing the problem.
It's an example. It's
No,
more
it's
like
not.
a workaround. That's more like a workaround.
That's almost just like, what would I even call that? That's like an automatic restart. It's a prophylactic effort, right?
It is.
Calling itself healing.
It is an every 24-hour validation that our Apache configuration is sound.
Yes, you have to look at it that way.
That's
Which is not
very
nothing.
silver lining aspect of it. So these are simple examples,
These are
and
simple
they're
examples.
great to
Now,
illustrate the concept. But what about when things get a little more complicated? Because
now,
that's
Well,
in
Mark, I'm
in
glad
the
you asked.
in the defense of the sysadmin and the web
I'm not
developer
making fun of the.
in
I'm
this
not making fun
particular
of them.
story, we had spent weeks trying to solve the problem, and
Dude,
the
yeah.
best we could figure is that this is a memory leak within the Gluster FS Fuse driver,
Oh,
which is why I said there's probably a fix for it by now.
oh
There
yeah, and I've
probably
done
is.
similar things too. I'm a fan of the nightly restart if that actually makes the problem go away.
Right.
But
All right.
but
So
let's
here's a
let's dig in deeper.
here's an example that is somewhat theoretical in that we haven't done it, but we're planning to do it. So we run our learning management system Moodle on AWS. It's
Moodle,
fine. Moodle.
Moodle, yes.
like poodle with
Like
an
poodle with an M.
Poodle with an
Okay.
M. It's the
M.
leading
It's a
open
moose and a
source.
poodle
Yeah.
It's
put together.
it's Google Classroom without the Google.
It's the leading open source learning management system.
Cool.
Um,
And it's not terrible.
no, not at all. I'm
I'm
rather
gonna be
fond of it.
disappointed if the
It's not a
logo
poodle.
for it is not a poodle with a moose head.
It's not a
Sorry, you're
poodle
gonna
with
be
a moose head.
disappointed.
That would be great though. You should suggest that next
I'm gonna
time
put
you're
in a
at
pull
Hack Talk.
request for that.
So we run on AWS. It's been fine. We migrated there last summer. We had an interesting problem. Well, it's interesting now. It was not interesting at the time. We experienced a series of brief database outages over a period of about 1 week. None was longer than about 5 minutes, but Moodle is a database heavy application. Like it has an internal cron that is running constantly. It's making many database writes and reads. So it's noticeable. Things will get unhappy. And the root cause does not concern us at this time. So what was interesting from a remediation standpoint is that Moodle had some internal tasks that were likely to break. One is this job. So Moodle has this feature where if you're grading things, like students submit assignments and whatever type of document they submit, it will convert it to a PDF. So, and then when a faculty member is grading it, they can annotate it, like right in the browser. They can mark it up, like if they were just
Like the grading of paper.
doing
Yeah.
pen and paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very popular. So the way that works is on the back end, Moodle takes every submitted document, throws it to the converter of your choice. We use Google Drive. And then if there's multiple documents, they get combined together using GhostScript, and then the faculty member's off to the races. That background job is a little fragile, the one that's converting the PDFs. And so a long time ago, we slapped some monitoring on it just to make sure if the queue got too big, we got an alert. But we noticed that three out of these four database outages, that process broke. And that job we have watching the queue only tells us like 8 a.m. in the morning, which if it broke at say 3 p.m. the day before, we might have like 700, 800 documents queued. It'll take it at least the rest of the day to get caught up, which is not great.
Right.
But they said, what we could do? Because our process for fixing this is basically a couple of SQL commands. Like there is no judgment involved here. Like the whole thing is, all right, do this SQL command, result comes back with X, do Y, or do Z. Like I said, okay, so if we could throw an event from the monitoring system that would say, hey, Moodle blipped in this way and lost its database connection, go run this automation that runs those SQL commands against the production database to restore this job.
Yeah.
Because I know I will probably have to do that. And the time it would take me to, all right, got to go get some access, run the commands. No, just do it. So on AWS, the way you would do this is you would have for example, you have a systems manager document, an automation that has, if you're like, okay, run this command, run this command, run this command, and then you wire it up to a CloudWatch event. So the key there is just you have to decide what kind of event you wire it up to. You could blindly wire it up to, okay, the unhealthy host alarm went off. Please go check the state of my cron jobs, because they probably crashed uncleanly, and there's a lock that needs to be cleared, but nothing else needs to be done to fix it. So that's I think a more advanced, intelligent example where you are responding to a specific known failure mode with a specific solution.
So is there any, I guess the only real snag there would be, is there any detriment to running those fix commands when there isn't a problem? Like if there was no issue to fix and you ran those commands, would it then break it in a different way?
Well, and that's a good question. So ideally, your fix commands don't have the potential of making the problem worse.
Right.
In this case, the first thing you would be doing is, okay, so like to take the deep dive, we would wire this up so that first of all, we know that no internal cron job can run longer than 1 hour. So we would queue it up to run. Either we would, like if it were tied to the outage, we would tell it to wait an hour and a half before actually running. If we tied it to some other monitoring, we would trigger it on some other condition. That is, we would make sure that the job is not running until we knew it was broken.
Right.
Because if you clear the lock and it's actually running, well, it's not the end of the world. You would just have a case where two tasks would be potentially processing the same data simultaneously.
Right. Which may
not
be
great, not terrible.
Which may be,
or it might be crossing the streams.
Yeah, right. You could cause a black hole.
Oh, in which case, I mean, that's lunch. But
so I saw a talk at Red Hat Summit 2019 that described a very similar setup, except I believe it was using Ansible Tower, maybe it was just Ansible, and a monitoring system such as Nagios or whatever, right? Where it was the same basic thing, right? And what it would do, or what they were proposing, I don't know if this was actually in play at the time, what they were proposing was, you'd have your monitoring system, it would detect a problem, server is unresponsive or whatever, right? And then instead of paging somebody on its first action, obviously most monitoring systems will give it a couple failures before it actually pages someone. Well, in this case, instead of giving it a couple failures before it pages someone, it runs automation, in this case with Ansible, that would then go and actually try to resolve the problem. Now, obviously, this isn't something that can replace like a thinking sysadmin. This is something that somebody has to have seen in the past and cooked up a fix for, just like your SQL lock thing there.
Well,
right?
Yes and no. With Ansible and systems like it, which feature the idempotent methodology, you can run the playbook, or a Puppet, I think, is the same thing, which should, in theory, bring the system to a known good state.
Sure.
So it's not that the system administrator will have knows how to. It's like, okay, we're lost, but I don't need to know how to get from where I am. I'm describing this poorly.
Sure, no.
Basically,
so what
we know where we need to get to, but we don't have to. We don't necessarily have to draw a map from every conceivable lost location.
You just need to get back to where it's supposed to be.
We just need to say, here's where you need to go. Go to this state.
And so the way you normally do that in a Puppet world is Puppet is periodically checking back and fixing state, like hourly or minutely or daily or whatever, right? Because you define that it's on Ansible. I guess with Tower it's different, but
Tower could schedule. They could fire it off.
With normal playbooks without Tower, it's always very like I execute the thing now, right? And it goes off and it does it. But what I'm suggesting is it's not necessarily config drift that's causing your problem. It's, it could be a file system filled up. It could be a server just ran out of memory. It could be, whatever, right? and server has gone unresponsive. What's the first thing you might do when a server's gone unresponsive? Reboot it, right? If it's fully unresponsive, cannot be reached on the network, go hit the IPMI device and reboot it, or go tell your hypervisor to reboot that VM. Or if you're in a cloud world, destroy the freaking instance and make a new one, right?
Say that's our strategy with these, both with our containerized solutions, but also with like Moodle's running in 2 or more EC2 instances in an auto scaling group. If one of them goes catatonic or misbehaves, I just shut it down.
Yeah.
Amazon terminates it, builds a new one according to our existing launch configuration. Now, if the problem still isn't solved, that tells me something. But at least I know that the system is coming out pristine.
Right. Because there's either a problem caused by some sort of weird ass live failure, or there's a problem in the configuration.
Yeah.
If the problem's in the config, you can restart as much as you want. The problem's not going to go away.
Well, but if the problem's in the config,
or rebuild from a template as much
and
as you want.
you have the config defined in some way that you can reconfigure into a known good state, then your previous example of just fire off the commands that reconfigure it, right? That would absolutely fix it, right? So, if some errant, junior sysadmin has gone in and changed your Apache config to listen on port 88 instead of 80, or 4444 instead of 443, Puppet or Ansible or Salt or whatever the hell you're using for config management can just come back and go, that's dumb, fix it, and off it goes, right?
So there's a related principle here that we've probably talked about before, which is that if this is how you're going to operate, and this is how you should operate, you cannot be making important config changes on the fly unless you are also, like, ideally, if you need to make a config change to a production system, you're making it in source control or wherever, and then like redeploying with that change.
Yeah.
Because if you're having to make those things live in production and then you don't go back and update your configuration, it's like,
so
crap, I gotta fix this. Oh crap, we just lost those other fixes we made 2 weeks ago.
Oh no.
Right.
Yeah.
Not saying
So
that
we
happens,
talked about or I should say we talked about this in a sort of related manner when we were talking with Josh last week or last time we recorded, where
compliance.
he suggests that nobody should be making any changes on your production systems. He suggests that should all be done in code, right? And then that is pushed out, and it's done on your stage and dev and whatever environments before that, right? And that's not wrong. Now, our argument was, sure, in a perfect world, that's exactly how things happen.
I think you strive toward that.
Yeah.
Like everything you do, you want to be getting closer to that ideal.
Close to you.
This doesn't sound like it's from a Disney movie.
Carpenter's, man, way older.
Oh man.
Charles is getting close to you. Anyway.
Yeah. Like we try to, certainly, you try to actually touch your production system as little as possible.
Yep.
But, maybe, look, everybody's situation is different. Not judging, but
totally judging.
Because certainly there's an assumption of a lot of these automated remediation systems, which is that there is a known good configured state of the system, and that it's safe to have an automated system interacting with it. And if somebody's been making unknown changes to production, those assumptions might become a little less valid.
Yeah, very polite way of putting it.
This is a family show.
That's when it shit the bed. Yeah.
It was a family show.
I mean, look, I have been as guilty of that as everyone else.
Oh no, right, and
you forget, you're rushed. Production is on fire, and it's got to be fixed now.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing, right? There's always a case. I don't know. This could bring up a whole other discussion of how many times are those cases where production is on fire and it has to be fixed now. How many times could those have been fixed by nobody touches production? Like how many times has it been, I'll make this little quick change, and that little quick change 6 hours later has brought down the system? right? Whereas if nobody was allowed to do that, and they were forced to do it all in, whatever automation platform you're using, and they were forced to do it all on dev and stage first, or whatever you're calling your pre-production environments, would it have hit? Like, would you ever have a case? I mean, I'm sure you would at some point have a case where production is down and it's a panic moment. Those things happen, of course, because of
They
other
happen.
faults, right? Because
Stuff
of
breaks.
things you couldn't
Hardware
predict.
failing,
Yeah, hardware failure
natural
or
disasters.
a load event or a bad guy attacking your system. Like, these are all things that are unpredictable and are not because of human error necessarily.
Stupid
Yeah,
humans.
because I guess
Stupid
one other
human.
thing I would add to that is, like, I can't offer like one great solution for how to set up automated mitigations, but I would say the way to start is have some run books, like have some well described ways of solving particular problems, and see if you can really get it down to where it is literally step one, do this, step
Yeah.
two, do that, get it down, like just keep refining it down, narrowing it down, so you can so eventually get to something and say, you know what, I could script that.
Yeah, right. You start with, I have predictable steps that I follow every time this problem happens. I've tried those steps out several times every time this problem has happened, and every time it fixes the problem. Or some great percentage of the time it fixes the problem, 98% or something. Then can you script it? And if you can script it, can you script it in a way that it can then be triggered easily? Right? So, like, can you make an Ansible playbook out of it? Can you make a Puppet module out of it? Or a Puppet, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. The thing they call it in Puppet that I haven't touched since I left the college.
There are modules in Puppet.
Yeah, I don't know if module is the word I'm looking for, but maybe it is.
I think it is. I
Okay.
think those are the droids you're looking for.
Those are the droids I'm looking for. Anyway,
You can go about your business.
can you make a thing out of it in whatever your automation platform is?
A
And
thing
then
in
once
place.
and then once
of
you
stuff.
once you have that done, can you then trigger that from something like your monitoring system or some other third-party thing, right? That can detect the failure and then trigger the fix, right? So that's the state you need to try to get to. You need a well-tested
also-
fix, you need it scripted, and you need a way to trigger it.
And you have to also, like, this is a discussion for a different day, but just something to think about is, what am I monitoring? Like, what am I not monitoring? And
Yeah.
what should I be monitoring? Like this cron stuff with Moodle I was talking about. We're not actually really monitoring that because it's internal to the application. Like, we can monitor if the web application itself is up or down, but it's got like 50 internal jobs. We do not have a way to monitor their state. We're working
Right.
on one.
Yeah.
But that's application state. It's complex, but that, like, we've at least identified that we aren't monitoring that, and it's a problem.
Right. Right. And how deep does that need to get? Right. So, like, sometimes there's a case of, I remember, and I don't want to pick on Jason, but it was him that did this. There was a point where every time a serious vulnerability would come down the pike, he would write a little a check for Nagios that would go and check systems for it, right?
Oh, no.
And then whenever a new system was stood up, it would get all these checks, and some of them were CVEs from 6 years ago, right? Where it's like, this isn't even a thing that there's a chance we're not patching because it's included with the base operating system now, right? But we're still checking for them.
Yeah, but if there's that one time.
Right. And the initial reasoning for it was, we have a couple hundred systems, or in some cases, not in our case, but if you're at a large enough place, we have thousands of systems, and we don't know what's vulnerable and what's not. We'll write a quick check that'll tell us if it's vulnerable, and then we know what we have to fix it on.
It'd be pretty interesting and hilarious though if a new build system failed the heartbleed check.
Yeah, right. You're thinking of the same one I am. That's the one that every system there was being checked for. Yeah.
I don't know that we've ever removed it.
Well, why would you?
Yeah.
I'm surprised if anyone's even still managing your Nagios instance.
Oh no, that's all in order.
It's just running on its own now.
No, we're actually going to put it on a blade.
Did you have to take that over too?
No.
Okay. It's going to get its own blade?
Or pizza box or whatever. Yeah, just so that it can monitor the
Oh,
monitor, not be monitoring the very thing that's running on, since that's been a problem in the past.
yeah, right,
Hmm.
right.
Yeah,
That
no, it's in good shape.
that's actually, I don't know why, but I'm surprised that. Well, I don't want to go any further with that. All right. Well, I think this has been a good topic. Do we have anything else to discuss before we go ahead and take a break?
I guess my concern with automatically fixing stuff would always be, how often do these automatic systems start trying to fix something and they end up causing a cascade of nonsense that's worse than the original problem? And I can't point to any documented evidences like that. And I'm not asking Charles to prove a negative, you know?
Yeah.
Um, that's what an anti-vaxxer would do. But, you know, how important is it and how hard do you think it is to vet these automatic, when something's an auto healing thing?
Well,
Because, if I'm going to get philosophical, isn't, basically you think of human diseases, sometimes the body's immune system, which is the auto healing, becomes your own worst enemy, and it overcompensates or even gets cancerous.
well, right. I mean, essentially you're asking is, what if we wind up with the uh, system's equivalent of an autoimmune disease? Um, yeah, I mean that's a really great question, and I don't know that it's really answerable either in the specific or the general.
Simple. Just don't do that. Come on.
Well, sure, right. Just be competent and don't make
Just be
mistakes. I
competent and
mean,
don't make any stupid
but
mistakes.
no, but so I think the key there is number one. You said we were talking about having a very narrow run book, so you are tying a remediation to a very specific set of facts. Like if you encounter this failure state, do this. And then I think the second is, I can't remember if we talked about this or not. I feel like maybe we did an episode called Imagining Failure. Um,
That might have
Maybe.
been before my
Yeah,
time.
I
we might
think
have
we
just
did.
talked about it, but
Yeah.
but again, you have to kind of sit back and think. Okay, what's the worst case here? What does this look like if it executes like every 5 minutes? Like, what um how can this fail? If it's expecting certain inputs, um, make sure it bails out if it doesn't have them, so it's not executing based on null data if you are relying on inputs. Um, but even then, sure, it's entirely possible that there could be something you just hadn't thought of, and that has a negative consequence. Uh, I don't know. I mean, that's going to be really fact specific, right? And
Yeah.
someone's going to come back with a war story. It's like, well, we had this remediation, and then this bizarre series of circumstances happened, and then this awful thing happened, and now we have these additional checks in place to prevent that specific unlikely failure scenario from ever
Yep.
happening again.
Yep.
And you hear that story. He tells that story at every conference he goes to, because it's one of the defining incidents of his life. He's never going to forget watching it all go up in flames like that.
I have one of those stories. You were
Release the
there.
chaos monkey.
I was there.
You were there.
Is this like the third anniversary of that? I'm pretty close.
I don't know. I don't have a pit in my stomach, so I must be getting over it finally.
You like Rev, Nate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean
Big
that's
fan of
a
Rev.
really good point. So you should also think about like what permissions does this script have? Like,
Yep.
how much damage can this thing do if it does go nuts?
Yep. What can it do? And I mean, honestly, like we're thinking, like, what if it goes nuts, right? So is that like, how nuts can it really go? You know what I mean? Regardless of what permissions it has, it's a script. It's prescribed to do a certain thing, right?
Sure, but
You know what I
in the
mean?
case of like in the case of the database remediation that we're looking at, we would probably make sure that you would need write access to the database, but probably only on that one table that it actually needs to touch,
Yeah. Right.
and no others.
Right.
Like, it's not getting root database credentials.
Sure. Yeah, I guess
How
that's.
could it run the wrong command?
But
I
like,
don't know, but let's make sure that it
but like
can't.
your previous example of the thing that's remounting all those Gluster mounts, that probably has root access because it needs it to remount, right?
It does.
It sure would.
Yeah. So.
It does, but only on that box.
Well, yeah, I would hope.
Yeah.
And ideally, it's just got sudo privileges for a handful of commands it needs, not full root.
Ideally, yes.
Ideally, that's exactly how that should work.
I genuinely don't remember. It's possible that that's how it was implemented, but I think it's running as root.
That's just easier.
It is just easier. Look, sometimes all the best intentions in the world are great, but you just need the thing that's easy and fixes it.
Sometimes when I touch. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so
No, I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm just
no, I agree.
I
But
always
you're
come-
right, and it's a very important point.
And the thing that always fascinates me is the tales of like the Chaos Monkey. You know, the thing they'd released.
The
at
thing Netflix was
which-
doing, yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, where it's basically
it would
your
induce
sys-
chaos.
for-
Yeah,
anything could break, and you've got to be willing to run the Chaos Monkey in production to prove that your system can self-repair,
right.
and that's quite frankly terrifying.
It really
in a lot of
is.
ways.
It really is. Unless you're that confident in your automation.
But when you talk about an infrastructure like Netflix or something, I mean, my God, you could never maintain that by hand. It's
No.
gotta automatically heal.
Yeah, right. Because
and
it would
come
just
back
take too many
into
people. Yeah.
service.
Yeah, you can't have your global streaming service with millions of viewers be dependent on waking up Bob at 2 a.m. when
And we like Bob.
things are
Bob is
down.
really good,
Yeah.
but
All right.
Everybody likes Bob better when he's had a good night's sleep.
Everyone likes Bob better when he's got
you
a,
know,
has a
he
good
can be a
good
cranky.
night's sleep.
He can be a cranky pants, that's for sure.
All right. So anyone listening, if you got any comments on automated mitigation or automated fixes, if you've got a war story, if you've got something cool you want to share with us, feel free to do so. Hit us up with a review or comment on this, or find us in our Discord community and let us know, what cool stories do you have? What have you done? What have you leveraged to automatically heal your systems? We kind of want to hear about it. I think it'd be kind of cool.
I've only had one of these, but I'm having a really hard time decoding listener safe O's comments in Twitch, especially the
Yeah,
Julius Rise.
I
I'm
think-
not really sure what that's about.
I think he may be a bot. Are you a bot? Safe D0? Tell us if you're a bot.
And saying you're not a bot's exactly the kind of thing a robot would say.
Because if you're not
Yeah.
a bot, we're
Tell
happy
me
to
which of
have you.
these- Tell me which of these pictures have bicycles in them.
Yes, we need.
God, I hate those. That makes me want to close the browser almost every time.
It does.
Oh,
All right, folks. Well, we're going to go to a short break. I don't think it'll be too long because we didn't go on as long as normal for our main topic, surprisingly. Although maybe we did. It has been like
What are
40
you
minutes,
saying?
hasn't it? Hey, look, there's what's his name doing. Wow. He's got to be a bot.
Would appear.
But now I'm curious what the hell all that is. That's fun.
well, there's a.
All right, folks, we're going to go have fun with the bot. We'll be back in a
Wow.
few. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. And we're back. I've decided to trade in my water
Huzzah.
for a hard cider.
And he's trading in his water for a
Which-
Cadillac. Little Billy
which-
Joel.
May as well be like...
You ought to know by now.
Oh, it is 5%. I don't know. It just tastes like apple juice to me. Maybe I'm too used to like 9% stouts.
Get for the money. Oh, you're trying to flex because you're...
No, I'm just saying that this stuff is like, it may as well, it feels like it's not even...
It's the cider is not supposed to. If you want to feel like you're growing testicle hair while you drink,
you need to drink...
you sip a bourbon neat.
Okay.
You drink an apple cider because it's delicious and refreshing. The alcohol's a bonus.
Okay. Thank you for
Right?
that, Mark.
You flex with hard liquor, not with malted or beer type beverages. That's
Okay.
not a flex.
Okay. Well, I wasn't trying to... Never mind.
Right. Well, you were kind of inverse flexing. You're like, well, this bad you can better tell. That's when I feel like I want to drink something, but I don't want to have to like work at it. That's when I have a nice Angry Orchard.
All right
What
then.
are you having? What kind of beer is that?
It's a Reds.
And so what is that? Is it a?
It's a hard cider,
It's a hard cider.
hard apple
So
cider.
it's probably delicious.
Where
Again,
did freaking...
cider's not supposed to cider? An ideal hard cider, you should not even be aware it's alcoholic.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
I don't know,
the
man.
crazy
I'm
person
not
over
usually
there?
a hard cider drinker. It's just the only thing that's really in the house, and I felt like I wanted to drink something other than water for the show tonight, so that's what I
okay.
had. All right, so instead of going on about whether I like or don't like hard apple cider, we're going to go on and talk about the announcements. All right, so we have our usual Patreon update. I think we gained a new patron this month, which is cool. We have 21 patrons for a total
Hooray!
of $95 a month, which is pretty cool. That's gone up a little bit. We had somebody upgrade to fit themselves into one of our new tiers, which is cool. Thank you very much for that. Tier. Wrong tiers. The English language is so weird. I don't know. Like, is there a better way? There should be. Maybe we should just say those words in some other language that doesn't... It's not as confusing, right? Like in German, do tiers and tiers sound the same like they do in...
It's an interesting question. I don't know the word for either one in German, but I bet you I can find out very, very quickly.
Okay, well, I'll go through and I'll tell everyone who our patrons are, and then you can tell us at the end. How's that sound? So, Nicholas, Andrew, Tatro, rootisgod, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn, Trooper-ish, Linux Sys 666, gimpyb, Marc with a K, DeMentor, John the Nice Guy, Marc with a C, Julius, Andi, Jay, Charles, and the infamous 22532. Thank you all for being patrons.
Put your hands in the air. Put your hands in the air. Hands in the air. That's for you too.
Don't have it yet, do you, Charles? Do I have to go on longer? Should I read them again? I do want to say thanks because folks are working their way into the new tier system in Patreon, which means they fall into whatever perk levels we have. If you're in the $10 or more tier, you get access to like a behind-the-scenes sort of thing on show night through our Discord community. So if you want to see that sort of thing, you get an extra angle on the camera here, which is like up over my shoulder. That's what I'm pointing to. And you get behind-the-scenes audio of, sort of pre-show during the break there, unless, we're doing something unseemly, like visiting the restroom or whatever. We turn that off. We spare you guys that. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can get access to it at the what is it called? The junior admin or higher tier on Patreon. Have you found it yet, Charles?
I have.
All right, let's hear it. How do you say tier, like the things you cry?
That would be trainer.
Sounds kind of like train. How do you spell train? Say train.
Zug.
Oh, okay. All right, and what about tier, like a level of something?
Stufe.
Stufa.
Stufa. I like that.
So they are completely different.
They are indeed completely different. I'm kind of curious. See, like I have this feeling that in English, a lot of people have trouble understanding. A lot of people who do not speak English as their primary language have trouble with certain words because they sound so similar, and we're all used to that as being native English speakers. Is that a problem in other languages? Like in German, are there problems like that? I'm only bringing up German because I know it's the language that one of us on this show actually can somewhat, at least fluently speak.
Well, I would say the thing about English that is a little challenging compared to other languages is that it is so heavily idiomatic compared to other languages. Like we have rules, but they have so many exceptions that
Right.
I don't know how it was for you all, but we weren't really taught them.
Rules are for the weak.
Oh, right. You just get them from
it.
use.
But,
yeah.
But German, for example, the rules are generally consistent. The pronunciation rules, in fact, are consistent. So anyone who's had a year or two of college German can do the neat parlor trick. You give them a page of German, they'll read the whole thing off, and then you say, okay, now what's it mean? Like, well, I have no idea. Never saw half those words in my life. But I can pronounce it.
Right. My 6-year-old daughter is learning German as part of her classes, and I don't know. I took 1 year of German in high school, and I had sort of exposure to it throughout my life because we have some family that's like native Germans. Like my mom's mom was a native German, right? So it's not that far removed. But going through some of it is it's just some of it is confusing, right? Some of the way, like some German words are very similar to English words, and some of them are completely off the reservation. So, anyway, language is a neat thing in general. Just like where do these words come from, and how did languages come to be what they are? But that's not this show. This is like a Sysadmin show where we don't necessarily talk about foreign languages, although it is fun. So, right, we were talking about Patreon. If you'd like to support the show via Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. If you'd like to instead get like a t-shirt or a mug or something, you can do that at Teespring, teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And the only other announcement that I have is that we are planning on a guest for our next show. His name's Alex, and he's from the Self-Hosted podcast. We've been talking about having him on for a while. Because we had an episode where we talked about self-hosting, and a lot of you guys reached out to us and said, you should have someone from the Self-Hosted podcast on. Yeah, it turns out we work with Alex. I mean, we knew that, but yeah, we work with Alex. So we're going to have him on the show, and we're going to talk about, well, self-hosting and things. We'll work out a good set of talking points for that. I'm sure he has opinions. Maybe he'll put us all to shame. I don't know. And we got a new review. That's a cool thing, right? Like we like reviews. So Charles on Apple, not this Charles, but different Charles. Unless it was you, were you masquerading as some other Charles? On Apple Podcasts, simply says, "I enjoy listening to you all. Please keep it up." And he put two little beers as the emoji. That's the word I'm looking for. I haven't even. I've had like 3 sips of this thing, and I'm already having trouble with words. Maybe it's more alcohol than I thought. And somebody, Marc, was this you added this other thing? You want to read your other thing?
Yeah. No, we were on we were in a chat room at work, which is not really as creepy as it sounds. No, we were in a chat room at work after an event.
How's that creepy?
It seems there's like a community, like multiple Red Hatters who apparently listen to us that I didn't even realize.
I kind of had no idea, to be honest, and that's kind of cool.
That's kind of because the guy we're trying to get on has listened to episodes, and then I think some other people kind of chimed in. So I think we got a little bit of a fan base, which I kind of thought was cool.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. So yeah, we're working on another guest. We haven't scheduled or anything yet, so I don't really want to talk too much about it, but. He's another Red Hatter, but he's very much involved in one of the communities that you guys are going to recognize, and we've talked about it recently. And well, that's all I'm going to say for now, because if it falls through or something, I don't want to disappoint anybody. But that should be coming up maybe in a couple weeks. I don't know. We'll see. We haven't worked out scheduling yet, as I mentioned. And I think that's all the announcements I've got.
Yay.
Yay. Wait, should I?
Yay.
All right. So, Charles is highlighting everything in my Google Doc, and it's very distracting.
The first time was an accident. Now it's deliberate.
Now it's just to see. Man, Dustin used to like change stuff on me during the show just to see if I could continue reading, and then Jason started doing it, and
Oh man, I remember Dustin. How's he doing?
I know, right? He was almost going to be back on the show, and then we scheduled him for a night, and he had to back out. We're like, all right, we get it. Want to try another night? And we were setting that up. And he goes, you know what, guys? I'm just not going to be able to. So yeah, unfortunately, as you all might expect, I don't know. Maybe someday Dustin will be back. If any of you remember Dustin, but at the moment, it's not looking good. And that's fine. We get it. Life happens. He's got like 8 kids now or something. I don't know. It's an exaggeration. I think he has like 3 kids, 2 kids, something like that. So, you know, life's a little hectic for him and his wife. So I completely get it. So I've been tinkering with my 3D printer again. I know, and now Mark's going to be like, oh, you got a 3D printer. We heard.
I didn't realize you 3D print. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally. So a coworker.
Do you lift?
I don't lift. I mean, I
Are you a
lift.
vegan?
I lift the PLA out of the box, put it on the side of the
You
printer.
CrossFit?
No, I don't. Yeah, right. That's CrossFit. That's just like when they throw those big tires around, right? Same thing. Totally same thing. That 1 kilogram spool of PLA is same thing. Exact same thing. Anyway, what I wanted to say was a coworker recommended to me that I try printing instead of using PLA, using PETG, which is another type of filament you can print in most 3D printers that are designed to print with PLA. And it's just basically a different polymer. Otherwise, it's pretty much identical. It works at a slightly higher temperature, and there's a few other quirks, but they're really the same quirks you had to learn if you were printing with PLA. It's just that now you have to learn them again. And it makes these really... Here, I printed a benchy, and I don't know how well you can see this on the camera because of the light and everything, but it is super smooth and rigid. It's like really...
Oh, hey now.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I like the results. It feels better than PLA did. So I've been experimenting with learning how to print with PETG.
That's awesome.
And one of the things that happened, unfortunately, and I don't know if this is because of the PETG or if it's because the build plate on the printer was like this, almost like soft plastic that had a texture to it. And the PETG stuck to it so firmly that it tore the damn cover. So I had to replace the build plate on my printer. So when I did, I got this stuff called PEI. I forget what it stands for, but it's basically they give you this like steel plate. It's like spring steel, and then over top of it is this like plasticky covering, which is the PEI, and it's like magic. You print to it while the bed is hot, obviously, because you heat the bed as you're printing. And I've been using nothing but PETG on it, but I assume the same as it was with PLA. It just sticks like really firmly to it, and then when it cools off, it just snaps free. You just flex the plate, and it pops right off. It's awesome. So if you're 3D printing and you haven't tried PEI, if you're using a glass bed or if you're using one of the standard beds that are like that softer plastic, I recommend giving it a shot. I got this directly from Creality, who makes the printer I have. So it's exactly the right dimensions for my printer. It literally just magnets right in place where the old one was, and off I went. So it was real simple, real easy upgrade. It wasn't expensive. It was like $30. As long as the thing lasts for a while, I think that's a perfectly legitimate price. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. I'm just happy to have my printer working again. Well, it was never really not working, but I had stopped using it for a little while, and then, I damaged the bed, and then couldn't use it for a week or two. Mark, I heard you're printing things again.
Yeah, so Monoprice finally got the damn thing back in stock. which was nice because I had to have it replaced. And it turns out that in the frigging year that it took me to get this warranty replacement, um, part of it was me dragging my feet, but part of it was Monoprice not having it in stock. They re-engineered a very important piece. So on the print head, and I don't really want to drag it all over, but on the side of the print head, there's a little sensor box that detects the bed. And the last two printers I had that went bad, it used this little like little ferro sensor thing. It literally like could sense the magnetic bed or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but it was apparently notorious for failing. Well, I put the thing together today and I'm like, oh, various pieces of this look different. Perhaps they've mended their sinful ways.
Yeah.
And it goes to calibrate it and the printhead goes down. All of a sudden this little leg sticks out of this box on the side of the printhead. It's a little switch.
Yeah.
And it touches the bed and it's like, oh, there's the bed, and it pops up.
Uh-huh.
So they clearly decided that exchanging a printer at their expense for a 20-cent or 10-cent piece that kept failing, it was worth re-engineering for something a little more
Yeah.
reliable.
So the thing you described sounds like a BL Touch, and that's actually, in my experience, in the people I've talked to, that seems to be like the standard way for doing what you're talking about, which is detecting the bed and auto
You
leveling.
mean the little thing
The
that
little
pops
thing that
out?
sticks out. Is it in like a? It looks like a little bulb almost, and then there's a little leg that sticks out the bottom.
Well, it's it's like a little black house.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the little leg can stick out. I
Okay.
mean, you can make phallic jokes too. But
Sure.
we're going with it's a leg.
It's a leg. It's totally a leg. But yeah, on the Creality printers, they have a thing they call a BL Touch, which bolts to the side of the print head. Mine doesn't have one. I have to manually level it. But it glows red for whatever reason. It looks like a little. If you've ever seen a vacuum tube, it looks just like a vacuum tube. I know a lot of people that are 3D printing today are going to be
love
like,
vacuum
"What?
tubes.
What's a vacuum tube?" Well, it's like a light bulb. But where the tip of the vacuum tube would have been is instead this little leg that pops out, and it does exactly what you just described. It can actually feel where the bed is, and then it can auto level based on that. So, cool. Well, I'm glad your printer's working again.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy about that.
I see it's not
Because
printing anything right now, so you're not printing
no,
nonstop like I
well,
thought you
I
would be.
didn't want to have to be. I printed the test cat, which
Oh,
if
good.
this doesn't print on a Monoprice, you've got problems, right? This
Right.
is the known good G code.
Right.
Print. I've been trying to print some replacement uh, handles for the back scratcher because they broke on me, but they print on this little raft that's part of the design,
Mm-hmm.
and as it goes up the shaft and the print head spinning around on it, and I know this sounds really obscene if you think about it the wrong way, but what was happening, this happened twice, is it actually broke from the raft at the bottom. And I don't know whether the PLA's a little old or there was humidity or it's just
I mean,
a poor design.
obviously you've printed them before, or is this a whole new design?
No, I've printed them before, but it might not have been this model even, right? This model of printer. So what I've got, I'm probably going to try and re-engineer the G code file so that it maybe prints out on its side,
Mm-hmm.
even though it'll be this. I don't know, or I'll just whatever. I'll just deal with it. But
I
it seems that I'm back in business.
I had
So
these. I found them on Thingiverse. They're like pivoting shelves. Best way I can describe it. They're like little bins,
okay.
and then there's a shaft that goes down the center of them, and there's 5 of them, and they
Mm-hmm.
spin on the shaft. So you mount it to the wall, and then you can spin them around. That's why they're called pivoting shelves, right? And when I printed them, I had to print the shaft, right, which is probably 8 inches tall, and I had the exact same problem. I tried to print it several times, and every time I tried to print it, it would get halfway through and it would detach and stick to the print head, or it would fall over, or whatever, right? And I ended up just laying it on its side and printing it that way. And it came out not nearly as smooth as it might have if I printed it standing up, but it worked.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the funny thing about 3D printing is that physics is a thing, gravity's a thing. You
Yeah.
can't print in the middle of air, so that's that the first time you learn that lesson and it really sinks in. Oh, supports are important. You know,
Yes.
the geometry of something is important. That's always a bit of an aha moment. Not the
Aha.
not that new not the 80s band with the cheery hit "Take Me On," or "Take on Me." Yeah. Anyway,
Oh, was that aha?
that was aha.
It was
I didn't know.
Dee
No, I know the song.
I say I think that's one of two songs they're known for.
Yeah, they were known.
What was the other
they
one?
they were known for
Living Daylights.
from the
I
Bond movie.
Yeah.
don't know if I know that one.
Have you seen The
It was
Living
before your
Daylights?
time.
I don't think so. The movie?
Yeah,
No, I have not.
James
be
Bond.
the
You know, British
it's underrated.
secret agent, license to
Yeah.
kill.
It's underrated.
Was
Yeah.
the Living Daylights? Was that the one with Gracie Slick or no?
Who?
Grace. Oh, sorry, Grace Jones.
Grace Jones? No, that was the one before View to a Kill.
Okay. Yep. You to a kill, which also that had a pretty killer theme
Yeah,
song.
Duran Duran. I think it's the only Bond
Duran
song that
Duran.
ever charted. That's great.
From Duran Duran.
Oh no!
less.
Come on, The Spy Who Loved Me. They played the crap out of that in the '70s when that one came out, or the '80s.
Oh, they
The Roger
did,
Moore
but
one.
I feel
Carly
like
Simon.
yeah.
Thank heaven above me, the spy who loved me is keeping all my secrets safe tonight.
Was it
Tonight's a retro
REM or
night, man.
was it REM or Radiohead that did a pretty good cover of that? I think it
I
was
don't know.
Radiohead. It was
I think
Radiohead.
Uncle Marc did a hell of a cover.
Yeah, right there. You
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
it
yeah,
first.
absolutely.
But other than that, yeah. So the 3D printer's back. I've started to buy UPSs. In fact, the second one just arrived today.
Hmm.
One of them arrived yesterday, and I was so happy with it that I ordered its twin. The first one is plugged in under my desk and is what Igor, my brand new lab server, is plugged into, as well as my Synology and the network switch.
That's a good thing to have plugged into a UPS.
Because, well, between the occasional, the power company sometimes has interesting ideas about. I never have extended outages. I have like 5-second outages.
That's a great
Which
thing to destroy a
suck.
storage array, though.
They suck because everything goes down. Yeah.
Yep.
And we've been having some work done on the house. So I had the guy banging on the side of the house doing siding. Fucker managed to oh god, I'm sorry. He tripped his circuit breaker a few times because when which took everything in my office.
He tripped
out.
circuit breakers by hammering on the
Right,
side of the house?
Because
Wow.
the
Wow.
box was
Yeah.
over there. And I
Wow.
guess the physical shock breaker popped, right?
Wow.
I'm just tired. I'm tired of it.
I mean, I could imagine that being a thing, I suppose, because that's
was
exactly a
like-
breaker is a spring-loaded switch, right? So yeah.
I had the friggin' thing losing power once a day from this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah.
And only one time was it because I accidentally knocked the cord out of it, which was, Three Stooges level. But now I've turned it so that can happen. But so anyway, I picked up APCs. They're
Yeah.
basically a power strip with
Yep.
with battery backup built in. So this guy is going to go into that plug back there, and the power for the router and cable modem will go into that. So
What did,
when I have a micro blick, a micro fail, the cable modem and router won't go out either.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, I have to imagine that the TCP/IP crap will still work because it's coming through the coax that goes
Yes.
out to the street.
Yes, I can
So-
tell you that having your cable modem plugged into a UPS will save you in the event of a power outage, as long as that power outage wasn't caused by a tree taking down the lines 2 houses up from you.
Yeah, and that's
In which
fine.
case,
So
your
the
cable's
point-
probably down too.
Yeah. So my point is, I'm trying to stop these very brief interruptions that turn into a very disruptive interruption of service because the server goes down, the Valheim server goes down. That doesn't.
no!
I don't have that come back up automatically. When my router goes down uncleanly, sometimes the forwarding rules don't reload properly, and I got to screw with that. And the VM that I had my IPA server on I guess the last time it went down and tried to come back up, IPA wouldn't start properly, and I fussed with it, and I'm like, whatever, I'm done. So I uninstalled IPA from that, and then just installed IPA on the physical host. So Igor's running my IPA server. What?
That's a great way to solve the problem.
So Mark, would you like to tie this back to the
Yeah.
mitigation discussion we were having earlier?
Well,
I'm done with this. Uninstall it.
well, no, because I re-architected it. Okay.
Yeah, okay, you re-architected it.
I'm gonna go
Because I
re-architect this
realized that-
wall in my house.
Yeah.
Having the DNS, because I use IPA for DNS primarily, and
Yeah.
I'm eventually going to start using the actual other stuff on it. But I'm like, you know what? The DNS server should not be on a VM that's running on the hypervisor. I'll just have the hypervisor handle it. So it'll bring that up when it boots, and then all the VMs, I don't have to worry. Hey, will my IDM server come up? Why isn't this working? All right.
So what did
What the hell
the
was that?
what did the UPSs cost you? I'm just curious.
They're like $60, maybe approach
Not bad.
70 with taxes. Yeah.
That's what I paid for mine.
Yeah.
And honestly, if they save me from like one irritating power failure, they're
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah. Well, all of
'Cause
my
I'm getting old and cranky. I'm
all of-
tired of it.
all of my computers that I use are laptops, so of course they have built-in battery backup.
Yeah, no, the laptop's never
yeah.
a problem. but
The
it's all the other shit.
in the basement where the cable modem is, I have a smart UPS 1400 from the days when I was still running a web host out of the house.
From the days when you were born and running a web host. Yeah.
Yep,
okay.
those days. So the cable modem is plugged into that, as is the machine that I'm using as a little lab box. So yeah, if my power goes out, the laptop stays up. The the switch that I have my Ethernet plugged into does not stay up, but if it's a quick outage, it comes right back anyway. But the Wi-Fi and the router and the cable modem are all in the basement, and they stay up. So yeah, it is very nice to not
I'm
have to
just-
worry about that from just a quick power blip.
Yeah, I'm just looking to protect from a very short blip. These
Yeah.
things will probably not run. I mean, depending on the load.
Well, yeah,
they're not going to have a huge runtime, but I'm not looking for a huge runtime.
That's what a
because
UPS is
usually not
for.
a problem.
A UPS isn't meant to carry your workloads through. It's meant to give you a chance to shut them down gracefully, unless it's, like a ridiculously large UPS that's meant to hold a data center up. But you're not going to put that in your house.
I'm not. No, I'm not at that level. So,
Yeah.
but a friend of mine gave me a UPS and it didn't, and I thought it stopped working, and that was hooked to my old loud airplane motor servers, like the
Yeah.
jet going off servers.
Yeah.
And it couldn't handle them.
So
and when I broke that out the other day after finally being frustrated, and I tried to get it to work and it wasn't, so I'm like, screw it. I'm gonna order one, and if I like it, I'll order another one for the cable modem. So there you go.
funny story, when I worked at that web host that I was at, it was me and one other admin, and we worked in basically the same room, and there was a long flat desk against the one wall, and we just had both of our workstations set up at either end of this desk. And underneath it was this big long power strip, probably had 12 plugs in it. It was probably a power strip from a rack, those ones you put along the side of a rack. But it was just laying underneath the desk, and we had our workstations plugged into them. Well, the switch, why this thing had a switch on it, I don't know, but it did, and it was at the other admin's feet. And twice, maybe 3 times, we're working along. He stretches out his foot, and you can tell what's coming. All of a sudden, both of our workstations get turned off.
Ugh.
Yeah, who needs that?
Finally, we got UPSs for the two of us, specifically to protect against him turning off the damn power strip.
But
Yeah.
and then Gagarin's back up. I installed a brand new satellite server in a VM today.
Oh, good.
lab. So
I set one up
I'm
the other
back
day
in
too, and
I'm
I've
back in
been
business.
tinkering around with trying to get build automation set up and stuff.
Yeah, I need something to reference because
Yep.
do all of them? Pretty much, yeah. All of my customers use satellite. So
A good
I'm
subset of
kind of
mine use satellite.
and you know me, I'm kind of involved with that group at Red Hat anyway, so I kind of need to keep my edge.
Yep. So anyway, Charles, you've been waiting patiently. Looks like you read a book.
I did read a
While
book.
waiting.
You guys were all talking. It's true, actually. You guys were all talking about printing things. I still read print matter.
Oh, see, it's relevant.
I don't know. It's like I have no objection to ebooks. I do read them, but there
Paper
is
books
something.
are better. Paper books are better. You
I'm
don't
not
have to
even.
sell
I'm
me,
not even going to make
Charles.
a. I'm not even going to make a claim of better. I'm just saying that
They're more enjoyable.
I personally enjoy the feel of a book in my hands, of turning the pages. I appreciate a book that has decent quality paper, nice printing. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah. So
I
I'd
agree with
mention
you.
I have a long running interest in the Pacific War as the Pacific part of World War II for no particular reason. And I finally read Shattered Sword, which is not new. It was published about 15 years ago, but it is an English language account of the Battle of Midway that draws heavily on Japanese archival sources, and it's pretty great.
That's cool.
It's thorough, comprehensive, and I enjoyed it.
In a similar vein, although not quite, I finally got my hands on Chernobyl, the HBO miniseries, which
Mm-hmm.
everyone has talked about, and I finally started watching it. I've only seen the first episode, but
The
I think
actor,
it melts down. Not to try and spoil
the
it.
don't
actor
ruin
Paul,
it.
the actor who plays Dyatlov, Paul Ritter, just died a few days ago.
Oh, really?
Brain tumor. He was 54. It's
Wow.
very sad.
On 54.
Yeah, I love Chernobyl, and this will sound weird, but I actually enjoy having it on in the background, like during the workday. Like this is not
You,
easy going.
I think it was you tweeted a few days ago
Mm-hmm.
that like you were watching it again in the background, and that just reminded me that I had never seen it and wanted to, so I went and found it.
That's one of those series that I think I should want to watch, and I never remember to watch it. I did watch the new monster. I watched the Monster Hunter movie that came out in 2020. That was kind of fun. It was goofy. If you're not a fan of the Monster Hunter games, it's probably not worth it.
I don't think I've ever played one.
Say
Yeah.
that's Paul W.S. Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Directing Mila Jovovich is in it.
Yeah, I mean, it was
It's
I'm a
probably
fan
good
of the
dumb
games.
fun.
Yeah, right.
And you guys might find it dumb fun, but
Hey, I like the
it's an
Resident
Easter
Evil
egg hunt.
movies.
So did
Yeah.
I.
Yeah, but if you're a Monster Hunter gamer, it's a wonderful Easter egg hunt the entire time.
Mm.
There's a lot of stuff that only the people who play the game will appreciate.
That's cool. That's
And I
cool.
appreciate I like those.
All right. So I think that's it for chat, huh? We have a little bit of news for tonight. Let's see if we can stretch the news out for a good hour yet. Otherwise, the show
first piece is friggin' huge.
The show is going to be.
It's friggin' huge, but I think we
Hold
don't
on.
need to go through all of it.
Hold on, we have to do something first. So I don't know which one of you added it to the notes here, but I'll just go ahead and start off with this is from Ars Technica, and how the Supreme Court saved the software industry from API copyrights. And we talked about this on the show. Wow, it might be 2 months ago now,
Or
where
even longer. It's probably last October.
You're probably right. It's been a while, but they all run together when you're living through a pandemic. So yeah, whoever added it, go.
Right. So this is the long-running legal dispute between Google and Oracle over the copyright of the Java API, which Google was alleged to have infringed when it created Android. And this has been through the courts for years. And what was finally in front of the Supreme Court, and we talked about this last October, was basically this question of whether or not what Google had done constituted fair use under U.S. copyright law. The district court had said yes. The federal circuit had said no. And the Supreme Court said yes by a vote of 6-2. So it didn't address maybe the bigger question of whether you can or cannot copyright an API. The Supreme Court just focused very narrowly on the question of assuming that it is possible to copyright an API. Did Google engage in fair use? And you can tell this is a Stephen Breyer opinion because there's like this 4-factor test. And the answer was yes, this is fair use. So I think we're done here in
I hope
terms
so.
of this dispute. It's over. Oracle has lost. I don't think there's anything really left to litigate.
So I don't want to cut this off in case you had further things to discuss, but
Nope.
it occurs to me, we're talking about lawsuits and people owning things. Did I hear that the ownership of Linux is now in question once again in court?
Oh God, really?
I swear I saw this somewhere, and I just did a quick Google search, and I obviously can't speak intelligently about it at this point because I'm only Googling it now. But I heard somewhere that has emerged from the dead.
Has that what would that even stand on?
Well, this was so. Remember in the '90s, there was the SCO
Oh, it was on a famous
versus
TV show. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, right. So apparently that's back. That's back in court.
I was in a famous
Doesn't
TV
like
show.
Sun or Oracle or something own SCO now?
Different companies buy SCO every so often.
Oh my God, you're
Use them
right,
as
it
a
is
bludgeon
back.
for
That's what I thought.
lawsuits.
Hang on,
It's-
reading. I will add this to the notes. Keep saying things.
Keep saying things.
Uh,
Right. So yeah. I didn't follow the original case all that closely because I was only just out of high school at the time, just starting my career. But even still, having starting a career in IT, I heard about it. Right. I heard about it from other folks that were around. So yeah, I remember those days, and I heard recently that it was back, and I meant to look into it before tonight's show, and completely forgot about it before the show got here tonight. So
okay, so first of all, you guys shouldn't even really be talking about this because
I think Red Hat's involved.
Sued.
Yeah, okay, IBM's being involved.
Yeah, you guys have unclean hands. You're accused of stealing somebody's intellectual property.
That's terrible.
So yeah. Anyway, this looks
I
like
see Marc has opinions.
Well, so anyway, this appear. Yeah. So, okay. So a company called Unixis, now Xinuos, had bought like the smoldering remains of SCO back in 2011, and so I guess they've decided to gin up this lawsuit because they don't have much else going for them at this point. I'm just skimming this ZDNet article. IBM is treating this as not very serious, and I gotta tell you what, if there's anything I fear in the world, it's IBM's copyright lawyers. So
yeah, right. I don't imagine this is gonna
patent
go
lawyers.
far.
So no, I don't think so. Like,
So
you gotta
anyway.
remember,
Could
like
say
back
something
in the
about this nonsense, but yeah, you're probably right. I can't.
But back in the bad old days, Microsoft was possibly bankrolling the lawsuit, and at this point, like Microsoft filed an amicus brief on behalf of Google in the Oracle court case. So Microsoft's come a long way.
Yeah, you think? They're
I
definitely.
can install my Ubuntu from an official repo on my Windows box. Microsoft has come a long way.
Absolutely. I mean, that's basically how I get by not having Linux on this machine that I'm on right now, because I need Windows for so many other things that are on it for like the media creation stuff that I do. And I did for a long time have it dual booting Fedora, and I almost never booted it because I always had to boot back into Windows to do the stuff I needed to do on it. So Windows Subsystem for Linux it is, and it works enough that I can get the things that I need to do that I am used to doing in a Linux terminal that you just can't do, or maybe you can do in PowerShell nowadays, and I never learned how. Anyway, that's beside the point. So yeah, ownership, or I guess there's more lawsuits around Linux. Oh well. All right, we have another article. This one's from ZDNet. Cloud Linux launches Alma Linux, CentOS Linux clone. Charles, was this yours, or was this Marc that added this in here? One of you did.
Charles
Mark,
added it.
Mark, did you
Mark
add any
remembered what it was
news?
called.
Yeah.
No.
Neither did
I'm a
I. I'm not
lazy
going to
ass
blame you.
Yeah. But I installed Alma Linux in my lab.
Well, that's cool. That makes you an expert.
Not really. I mean, it installed. Seems to work.
So this is
Yeah.
uh,
It's a downstream rebuild.
Like CentOS.
Yeah.
Like CentOS was. I don't know.
yeah. So it's just a brief note, but we talked about this at some show that the dust up over CentOS being discontinued and what was behind that, what it meant, and what might be coming.
CentOS Linux. Yeah.
Yes, CentOS Linux. Um, so there is now Alma Linux, which is, I guess, a CentOS Linux clone, and is starting off as
So
it is a binary compatible fork of RHEL 8.3.
so it's not a CentOS clone. It's a rel spin or rel
downstream
clone.
rebuild.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
It's technically what's called a downstream rebuild.
Yeah.
It's not a clone because they don't touch the binaries.
Right.
For users who care about the details, give me 10 seconds. Essentially, every product that Red Hat sells, we provide the source code. We're legally obligated to provide to our customers, but we put it on FTP servers or now GitHubs for the world to grab if they want. So we actually go above and beyond what the open source license says we need to do. And people can take this source code and do what they want with it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing illegal about it. And so now to actually execute a downstream rebuild can be challenging because part of what makes RHEL is our build process internally, including the quality assurance gates and stuff that goes through.
Yep.
We don't give that away. We don't have to, and in fact, that's part of our value, if I may sales whore for a moment. So what Alma did was something non-trivial, but the CentOS project has done it for years, so I'm sure that there was some crossover pollination. They basically take the source code and they rebuild it, and it is said to be compatible. It's basically compatible with RHEL, and it's downstream because it comes from RHEL as the parent, as opposed to upstream, which would be Fedora. Fedora is the upstream community project that feeds into RHEL.
Right.
That was more than 10 seconds.
It was, but that's okay. It was a good description. So, I mean...
And apparently, I'm told by some people, that apparently we at Red Hat are supposed to be butthurt that Alma's released. But I wish them nothing but luck, and I mean that non-sarcastically or non-ironically, because this is open source doing what it's supposed to do. And Red Hat the company, decided they no longer wanted to be in the downstream rebuild business for many good reasons. And we've kind of talked about this before, and we might talk about it again in the future. But for folk who want Red Hat Enterprise Linux and don't want to run Oracle, which is, you can run that for free, they now have an option. If you were using CentOS and you have no intention of paying Red Hat to run RHEL, or now hate us because of IBM, well, you can run Alma Linux. Knock yourself out.
Have fun.
Salute. Yeah. All the best health to you.
So yeah, definitely, I mean, personally, I see it as good, right?
It is good.
Obviously, I work for Red Hat. I like to see Red Hat succeed because I work for Red Hat. But I was a long-time CentOS user before ever joining Red Hat. Before ever using Red Hat Linux professionally, I was a CentOS user. I ran CentOS on production workloads at previous jobs that couldn't afford or didn't want to pay for Red Hat software, right? And I'm a little sad to see it changing the way it's changing, but I also don't think it's the end of the world like so many people are painting it to be.
Well, if I can tell you a dirty secret that's not really a dirty secret, Red Hat's not trying to go after these little shops.
No.
The kind of customers Red Hat wants are honestly the bigger companies. The companies that everybody knows. So yeah, we don't look at this as a problem. We look at this as open source working.
Sorry, I'm just reading a comment
I
that
don't
came in
get
on
the
YouTube.
yeah. I think Stream
Yep.
is great.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I don't get it
there's
either.
there's some FUD around that, and I think that the angriest people in the room are the ones who thought we took away a toy that we were obligated to provide forever for free. And that's the ones who yelled the loudest.
But I think that's just it, right? We didn't take it away. We just changed it,
Yeah.
right?
But yeah,
So I think CentOS Stream is just as viable for production use as the old CentOS Linux was.
in other words, not your best idea.
Well, no,
you're gonna
right.
run
So
your-
if
you're going to run your business on it, you got to understand the risks.
right, so
And I hope it can self-heal.
so that's what I mean, right? So if it was considered
See what I
okay,
did there, Charles?
right? Circling back, if it can self-heal.
No, I said if you're going to run your business on CentOS or Alma Linux,
So
you better be able to self-heal.
So here's
you
the
gotta
thing: if
understand the risks.
if your business is okay or was okay with running CentOS 7 or 8 in production, and that's where you had all your eggs, right? I don't think that that CentOS Streams is any worse for that. Is what I'm saying. It's the same base OS. You just receive updates in a different way. You receive updates more frequently. You still get to control when the freaking updates get installed. The only difference is it's not downstream of RHEL. Now it's upstream of RHEL. That does not mean that it's RHEL's alpha.
No.
It just means you get packages before they come to RHEL. So, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back down that rabbit hole again, but
That was
it came up. All right, so I think that's the end of the news, and we're going to have to blather on some more because we're not even at 2 hours yet.
No, we could just get the show in at time.
What?
Just saying.
That's weird.
crazy talk.
That's weird.
Crazy talk.
Crazy talk. All right, so I guess that's it then, guys.
Who's
Whatever.
pinging me on Slack? What the hell?
I don't know. Is it someone that wants to come in and make the show longer?
Oh, it's AO. He must be listening live.
Oh,
He-
good.
He reached out to me directly on Slack.
Oh, hi, dude.
Because the timestamp is in the middle of when I would have been ranting about the UPS stuff. Yes.
Nice.
Very good, AO.
Well,
Thank you.
why isn't he in our Discord pinging you instead? That's where he should be.
I don't know.
He was
What-
there.
I'm not. It's not my.
He is
night to
there. He's
watch
even
it.
online. I'm gonna complain to him right
I
now.
don't see him online. I see him with the little sleepy moon.
Oh, good point. Well, it just means he's whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are rambling at this point. So, folks, let me get my little script here. I guess it's not a script, but whatever. My little points here that I have to cover at the end of every show, which is thanks for watching or listening. If you want to watch us live, you can do so by finding us on Twitch or YouTube or even on our Facebook page. We go live the second and fourth Thursday of every month, unless for some reason we have to move that. Yeah, we don't stream to MySpace. Although we could stream. I hear you can stream to Twitter. Maybe we'll start doing that too. Should we do that? Stream to Twitter, Periscope, Instagram TV, or whatever. Let's just find everywhere we can stream to, and we'll stream. We'll just be like stream whores. Stream everywhere. We're gonna stream to like Pinterest. Can you do that? Can you stream to Pinterest? We're gonna do that too. Anyway.
Sorry, I opened my mouth.
Remember, youtube.com/IronSysAdmin podcast or twitch.tv/IronSysAdmin podcast. If you want to join our community and chat with us or get in on some of the cool backstage stuff I was talking about, you're going to have to do that through our Discord community. And there's a link for that in the show notes, or you can find it on IronSysAdmin.com. You can find our Facebook and or Twitter accounts pages by going to Twitter or Facebook and looking for Iron Sysadmin. And you can subscribe to us wherever you would normally find podcasts. And if you can't find us on your favorite platform, let us know. We'll figure out how to get added there. And
let us know. Let us know.
know.
All right.
I'm just going to get like sound bites of all those. So if you ever miss a show, we can still play them.
Yeah.
Just because, you don't want listeners to miss out on that, right? And of course, if you want to support us via Patreon, you can do so, patreon.com/IronSysadmin, or you can buy merch on the Teespring, teespring.com/ what was it, stores? Yeah, /IronSysadmin. And with that, I don't think I have anything else to talk about. So say goodnight, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Not all.
I gotta find I gotta switch to the thing. I wasn't ready. Here it is.
Do the thing.
Night, everybody.
Thing.